Hi, I'm Tim. He's Brian. Welcome back to the Watch Box. This is from the vault. 3 watches each. We are the team with the theme, and today the team theme is sub 40 millimeters. You asked, we answered. Brian, launch us right in. What is your first sub 40 millimeter watch, and why do you love it?
So first sub 40 watch, Mark 15 IWC. Older variation of this watch. To me, the heyday of when this watch was made. Integrated steel bracelet, black dial, luminescent hands. To me, it has just the standalone date instead of the triple date feature, which I personally like a lot better than when they transitioned into the triple date. At 38 millimeters, it's the perfect size for me. It's a rugged Mark watch, and again, everything that encapsulates the collection.
This particular model with the applique numerals is a little bit upscale, considering the standard Mark 15 is not a printed dial. You get a lot with this watch. First, it's not teensy like the JLC powered Mark series, the 1990s. At 38 millimeters, you're getting a real good size, but because it is powered by an ETA 2892A2, it's still thin. Now, the integrated bracelet, it's not quite a Genta style integrated bracelet, but it's nicely keyed to the case. It's a clever piece because IWC's bracelet architecture is completely modular, so when you look on the inside of the links, you can see there are these little dimple pushers that allow you to remove every individual link, and that is true of both sides of the bracelet, as these through-fitting bars allow you to size every single link, remove every single link, and if you're really OCD, disassemble and clean every single link. You can even see they paid attention to detail with engine turning inside the clasp, and this was back in 1999 to 2006 when IWC would take delivery of a knockdown kit of the 2892, replace a lot of the parts, and then tune it in-house, making this very much an IWC proprietary mechanism. And I would also add that being 60 meters water resistant with a soft iron inner cage, it's both swimmably water resistant, which is good for a pilot watch, and highly anti-magnetic. Let's do a wrist shot with this one, Brian.
And another interesting feature, or I shouldn't even say it's interesting, another nice feature of the watch is that you have the ability to remove the bracelet and put on a black strap or black calfskin strap that also didn't come with the watch on a bracelet originally, but was a version of the watch that was made at the same time.
By modern standards, this could be your dress watch or this could be your sports watch. And since it's post-tritium, you don't have to worry about the originality of the dial or its luminescence at night. Real nice piece, good piece, versatile piece, probably the versatility winner on the table today. Okay, where should I start? Let's start with something that's a bit of a knockout. You guys have asked about watches for truly smaller wrists or very traditional tastes. And this circa 2000 125th anniversary reference 15116 from Audemars Piguet is exactly what the doctor ordered. This is a 1950s style men's ultra-thin dress watch, platinum, only 5.1 millimeters thick and powered by the legendary JLC engineered and Audemars Piguet finished caliber 2003. That movement, manual wind, hand executed, built by the same people who build grand complications due to delicacy, is only 1.65 millimeters thick, and it features a case of 32 millimeters that is only, again, 5.1 millimeters thick on the wrist. This timepiece has a lustrous and luminous, bottomless, gloss metallic sunburst blue dial, and as you can see, it is the picture of mid-century elegance. Lovely, immaculately crafted, perfectly proportioned, the kind of thing Raymond Loewy might have worn back in his day. This is a special piece.
Show off that buckle too.
Yeah, the buckle probably weighs more than the watch. You can see it's a turn-of-the-century AP style folding buckle, logo fashion, and then a lovely vintage loop motif on the exterior. So it's not simply the piece pulled over from an offshore. This watch simply exudes class, and it has a timeless beauty that will look just as good for the 275th anniversary of Audemars Piguet when the day comes.
And to me, we've brought watches like this on the show before. Watches like this from this brand very often go overlooked in the collector's market, both in terms of desirability and honestly, price appreciation. But to me, they offer exceptional value for what you're getting for the money on what you can buy them for.
And again, take a look at that movement, properly beveled with, again, lovely, handsome, shimmering Côte de Genève. It even features a couple of proper interior angles, nicely executed in true high horology in minimalist fashion. They went all the way and adjusted it in 5 positions like a chronometer.
Was this a limited edition?
This was not necessarily...
It says anniversary edition.
It was an anniversary edition, but it wasn't a limited edition. It was limited by the number they could make. That movement, like the movement in the Jumbo, is constrained by production capacity.
Wow. Okay, moving right along. So we can go with the FP Journe here. So Sub-40 decided to bring on a brass movement FP Journe. Here we have a 38mm Reserve de Marche, beautiful platinum case, white gold grainy dial. To me, one of the 3 benchmark pieces of the brand itself, along with the Resonance and the Tourbillon. Personally, I love the layout of the dial. I love the time-telling sub-dial being on the far right with that power reserve indicator there on the left. You've got the big date window. It's quintessential Journe, and to me, of all of the configurations, it's probably the most understated. You have the platinum with the gold dial, platinum with the rose. You would then transition into a rose gold case with various dials. But as far as the, let's call it, perhaps most traditional in appearance, it would be this combination.
A lovely long-legged movement too. You can see this is brass era FP Journe. The movement's, of course, made of brass, but they're silver because of the rhodium plating to prevent corrosion. Now, it's a long-legged movement, rated at 5 days power reserve. The truth is it'll run for almost 7. And a lot of folks ask me, why is the rotor off-center? Why is it not at least in step with the size of the case back? And the reason is because the Octa 1300 was always designed as a driver for complications, everything from annual calendars to power reserves to chronographs. And so in order to adjust and build in that modularity, the rotor and the winding system wound up being a little bit off-centered because of what was going to be on the dial side, not necessarily because it needed to be that way on the reverse side. Let's throw it on the wrist. And by the way, guys...
But it's become a defining feature, which is so interesting when that happens.
But people always ask, and they always ask on some of the FP Journe watches, if you fully wound it, why is it indicating 0? And that's because some FP Journe power reserves work backwards. They tend to be the watches with the word chronomet in their name. By the way, the watch looks great, and only about 45mm lug to lug. Anyone can wear this watch. It's 38mm, but it's even narrower across the wrist. And I should mention, factory strap in extraordinary military-style olive green. That really gets it done. Looking great there. Okay, this one is going to be mine. Well, darn close to mine. Very near and dear to my heart, a JLC Master Perpetual. This is the design from the 1990s. 37mm stainless steel, and you're getting the best of both. You're getting the IWC Kurt Klaus Perpetual calendar system, which is mechanically programmed. So you can see how there's a little pusher adjuster on the flank. IWC uses the crown. JLC realized people were setting the calendar ahead, and it moves in one direction. So JLC separated the crown from the calendar setting system. When you press the little button, you index the calendar, and everything's programmed, including the moon phase. It jumps ahead in sequence. Now, being only 9.2mm thick, it is a thin and fine multi-complication. You'll note it's a JLC 889 on the back, and the 889, even though it's a combination of machine and hand finishing, is just brilliant. The architecture, the circular Côte de Genève, the fired blued screws, the shimmering bridges, which aren't quite a conventional Côte de Genève. It's thicker, it's deeper, it's almost like an engraving, and it reads differently. There's also the lovely jeweled reversing rocker for the bidirectional winding system, and no corners cut, 6-position movement adjustment, not 5, and a 22-carat winding mass outboard, not 21, not 18. 37mm watch, stainless steel, so you're not paying for precious metal here. You're getting the complication, the JLC name. You're getting a wonderful all-arounder that is graceful, that is classically sized, but unlike the Audemars that I just showed, it doesn't necessarily feel like a quarter strapped to your wrist. So if you don't quite want to go back to 1950s dimensions, this 1990s classic is a great way to go, and a perpetual calendar to boot.
Yeah, watches like this to me is really one of the reasons to purchase a JLC wristwatch. I mean, incredible value for the level of watchmaking that goes into each piece. And what I always find so fascinating is that they can be known for watches like this, and then we'll bring an Ambox onto the show, and they're known for watches like that. So they, I believe, have produced more calibers than any other brand. Is that correct?
Well, certainly for one brand. I wouldn't bet against ETA's pile of patents, but certainly for a single brand under a single name, that's probably true. With over 1,300, I think JLC holds the record.
So they truly run the gamut from watches like this to even more avant-garde pieces. And if you're looking for a traditional watch with good watchmaking history, this to me is their bread and butter.
Yeah, pretty much Glasuta Original, Zenith, Ulysse Nardin, and JLC. They're your underrated brands. I would also say, by the way, this movement in the Audemars Piguet, that was introduced in 1953. It was originally the JLC 803 Bausch, so that movement has JLC production history and engineering history in it. All right, Brian, let's take a look at what might be the most entertaining dial on the table today.
So here we have a Rolex 16233, stainless steel and yellow gold Datejust, 36mm. If we were doing a sub-40 show, it felt wrong not to bring a 36mm Datejust to show. So beautiful, bright blue Jubilee dial. It almost has like a bluish black appearance to it, and you can really only get, I think, the full picture of the color when you move it as you're doing in the light. Gold Arabic numerals, which give what is reasonably a somewhat dressy watch overall, a sportier look and feel. And to me, just the blue playing against the gold is just an awesome combination.
Also, this is one of the few Rolex watches that doesn't appear to have a book printed on the dial. Although the printing is there, the fact is it's a very subtle gilt style printing that blends into the dial. So this watch is all about the dial, and remarkably, the branding on this Rolex isn't necessarily evident, so it doesn't scream from the rafters its origin or status. This is one for the connoisseur because on this Jubilee bracelet with that fluted bezel, a collector knows what this is. The kind of person who has to look for the badge or the name isn't going to be into this watch. And that's probably the best kind of luxury watch. It's going to bring you the kind of folks you'd like to strike up a conversation with, talk watches, exchange names for your fora and your online favorites, Facebook, Watch Pro Site, Time Zone, all those places where people meet up. There are real-world analogs, and this watch can help to unlock them. A real cool piece, and again, 100 meters water resistant. It brings everything that's great about a Rolex dress watch. It gives you sports watch architecture and capability, but with elegance that would wear well with the suit. And the Jubilee feels and looks great.
It's fun also looking and seeing all the dials that they made in the past. You lose, you know, when you're so used to focusing on the new configurations that are available, you sometimes forget all the different dials and combinations that have been available over the years. So it's almost like a time capsule going back and looking at these and saying like, you know, oh my God, I can't believe that they made this color, this configuration. How cool is this? How relevant is this today? Like this watch, if it came out now, would do just as well now as it did back when they launched it.
I'd love to see a Super Jubilee bracelet version of that, no doubt. Well, speaking of watches that haven't changed much with time, this was a 2012 numbered edition from Omega, the first Omega in space, the FOIS, modeled after the CK2998 that Wally Schirra took into space in 1962 on Mercury 7, or I should say the Mercury Atlas Sigma 7. This was a personally owned watch at the time, not NASA standard issue. The pre-beveled, pre-professional case, this was the CK2998 recreated for 2012 in a 39.7mm case, not the standard Moonwatch's 42. So this Wally Schirra tribute is a lovely and somewhat archaic design that kicked off the modern tradition of the CK2998 case that would later resurface in several editions, 2016 and I believe also 2 years later. But this was the first appearance of that, quote, primitive Omega case style. Now the timepiece isn't a limited edition, it's a numbered edition, but that means each individual example has a unique number. And as you can see, the number is quite high. So it's not a rare watch, but it is a fun and evocative watch, somewhere between a sports watch and a dress watch today. The fact that it's not as broad across the wrist also plays well on a smaller wrist like mine. For reference, my wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference. This does fit better than a standard Moonwatch. Mechanically, it's a standard Moonwatch.
Would you say it's most true to the original though?
I would say there are some aspects that bow to the original. The case is the most dramatic, but you can also see the combination of the logo and the Alpha-style hands rather than the later baton. Those are nice acknowledgments, but this is designed to be more of a modern nod to history rather than, strictly speaking, the 2017 trilogy reissues. Those are much more literal. This is somewhere between that and a modern watch, and I think it has an identity of its own in its own right as a result, and that's a good thing. You don't necessarily want to just have a reissue watch that's trading on reflected glory. This one has a whole lot of credibility and is probably a classic in its own right. Not rare, but a classic.
And is that it's sort of exactly as you said, right? It's a little bit more wearable. I think it's more transitional for every day. One of the nice features of the watch too is that they come alongside with NATO straps that you can change the brown out with to make it a little bit more sporty.
I think that's a great point. The boxed sets that come with these watches are a little piece of theater in their own regard, and the Moonwatch has always been exemplary in that sense. I would also say this, in an era when a Daytona costs $25,000, you can buy an iconic Omega for literally less. I mean, this watch, it's probably like a quarter of that, to be perfectly honest, probably less than a quarter of that. So you can get a really substantial name from a great brand and the core model from Omega. If you're gonna save just one Omega from a sinking ship, it's gonna be a Moonwatch. That's just the way it is. All right, Brian, I'm gonna give you the last word today.
So real quick, did you do the unboxing with the Casio?
I haven't done the unboxing with the Casio Dream Project just yet, but you guys are going to be stunned when you see the Polonia wood box and the handmade iron kettle.
I need to see that video.
$104,000 worth of G-Shock. You better believe I'm going to show you the box.
Well, we thank you all for logging into the Vault today. Again, I'm Brian. This is Tim. Hope you guys enjoyed the show.